on the cloud, right? That's the option.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're going in for a new project, ASP.NET web application, and what we're going to try out here is Razor code. Okay. The standard options, MVC with not configured for HTTPS. That's what I'm picking up. All right. So while this starts, I'll take you back to what we did yesterday. And we said that the URL that you had given had 3 parts to it. What are the 3 parts to the URL? What are the pattern, that default pattern that they have given you?
Controller, action, ID.
Controller, action, and a variable called ID. All right. So this is the standard thing that is normally used, but you can change this also, and we'll see how you can change this in later examples as well. Now, what if you wanted more than one parameter? The ID goes in how? If you remember what we did in the last example, how does this go in ID? ID will go in as what? As a
Parameter to index.
As a parameter to index, correct. So what if, for example, if I had more than one parameter to be received? One possibility is you could go in here and specify what the parameter is. So whatever, / param2 and so on and so forth. All right. You could do this. This is one possibility. So now the first parameter will be called ID and the second parameter will be called param2. And then you can have as many options as you want out there. And all of these would be fixed, sort of names of parameters out here. Now there's an alternate way of doing this. You can do it this way also and give a fixed structure to this. But there's an alternate option available out here. And let's see what the alternate option is. Let me add my own controller. I'm not changing the home controller. Let me add my own controller. So I'm adding a controller here. And I'm not changing the name, default controller itself. Did you all practice this yesterday? Just out of curiosity, did you all after your session ended?
Yes,
Hopefully you're practicing.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, and you're familiar with all the things that I'm doing at a slightly quicker pace, right? So one of the parameters there was the ID, right? Now, what if you had other parameters? So let's say, for example, int a, comma, string b, comma, int c, right? What if you had other parameters out here? What is one way of doing it? One possibility is going and giving in all the parameters there in the root. Now, the alternate way of doing this is you receive this as a query string. So the parameters that you're receiving, you receive this as a query string out here. And when you receive it as a query string, these values are automatically going to be put in out here into the variables that you have. Okay. Now, one possibility that you might find is that the values that come in, the user doesn't send in these values. So if you don't send in the values, you get an error. So what is the workaround to that? What do you do to avoid that problem?
Default value.
Two possibilities.
Nullable or default value.
Either default parameters or nullable. When would you use default and when would you use nullable? When would you use default and when should you use nullable? Supposing it's an int, when should you use default and when should you use nullable?
Sir, if we are sure that we are going to get an input, or otherwise if we are not sure, then we can use nullable.
If you want to distinguish between a parameter not being given and having a default value, like if I had a default value of equal to 0, I don't know whether the parameter has been given with 0 or has not been given has got a default value of 0. So in such a case, you could use nullable so that when it receives null, it means that the parameter has not been received. Now, if you want that it doesn't matter. And if a parameter not sent, then it should take a value of 0 in any case. And it does not matter if the parameter is not sent. If that is the situation, then you use a default value. So we wrote code the other day also in the evening, last example that we did, we checked for what if it was null and then we did a not found. So if you wanted to write code like that, then keep it null. Otherwise, keep it as with a default value. So in this example, I'm keeping it with a default value, right? So string B is equal to whatever, a blank string A is equal to 0 and ID equal to 0. So if it is not passed, it will take these values. All right. Now, let's see how these values are received. So when I run this, again, let me make the default controller as the default controller. Okay. And let's try running this. So initially, of course, when you run this, what is the values it's going to get? First time you run this, they will all get their
Default
values. So I'm okay with that. In this example, I don't mind if they get their default values. Right. So if you look at this, this is ID is getting in a 0, and then A is getting 0, B is getting in a blank string, and C is getting in a default value. So no problem about that. So let's do this. Problem was what? What was the issue? I had not added a
View was not there.
Yeah,
View.
I had not added a view. So let me quickly add a view. You want to use a layout page, use a layout page. You don't want to use a layout page, you don't use a layout page. All right, and let's go back and run this. Right, so this ran fine. Now whatever values I want to pass, okay, whatever values I want to pass can be passed in this way. So this is actually slash default slash index slash 10. Now what is the first parameter 10 out there? What is this taking it as?
ID.
It's going in for ID, and then after that you given a query string. So you would say question mark, and then you would give the query string after that. So query string here would include whatever values you wanted. So A is equal to whatever, let's say 20, and B is equal to Vikram, and C is equal to 30. So if I give in this now, right, the values that you are giving here in the query string are automatically going to be assigned to A, B, and C. Now this feature of reading the value from the query string and automatically assigning it to the parameter that you're given out there is what is referred to as binding. What is referred to as binding. When you use binding without you writing code, the variable names that are given here in the query string are automatically being assigned to the variable names that you have in your code out there. So we're not done anything extra. We're not done anything extra in the code. This is the ASP.NET MVC code, the engine, which is actually doing that for you, which is actually performing the binding. All that it looks out for what is the name of the parameter that you're given in the query string and the name of the variable that you're given in your function. If they match, it automatically assigns the value to it. All right. So this is an example of binding. We will use a lot of examples of binding, wherein the values are automatically coming into the variable without we having to write down code. So let's see what happens when I do this. Let me just copy paste this. And if you notice out here now, ID has got the value of 10, or A has got the value of 20, and then B has got Vikram, and C has got 30, whatever we had passed out there. So this is what is actually being received out here. All right. What if I had not given anything? Supposing I had not given B. Supposing I had not given B and I have given only A and C. What will it take in that case?
Default value.
B would take the default value. So B here in this case took a blank string. But then A took the value of, A took the value of 10. sorry, 20, and C took the value of 30. ID, of course, took a value that you had given out. So if all values are not passed, then though it will take the default value. Or you could have it nullable and you take a null value and then decide what you want. But generally, when you're giving a query string, then the parameters are generally optional in nature, right? When you give a query string, it is not compulsory to give that. So that's the general way in which you would work with a query string. Are we clear on this, everybody? So important feature called binding at play out here. What does binding involve? Reading the values from the query string and automatically assigning it to your functions out here, or what values to be given out here. All right. Let's take this further. Let's now display these values in the view. All right. Let's display these values in the view. So let's go to the default view and help me with the display of the values. Supposing I want to display ID and then ID we did the other day. Similarly, what would you do out here? How do we pass the values from there to here? What could we do? Start off by putting them into the view bag.
View bag.
So view bag
ID.
dot ID equal to ID and whatever else. Whatever other parameters that you had, you could actually put them in there. Viewback dot A is equal to A. Viewback can contain multiple values, any type of values, all of this would work. Viewback dot B is equal to B and viewback dot C is equal to C. Right? This is what we had. This is how you could actually work with this. Displaying the values now in the default view. Help me. Simply ID is equal to, how did we display the value? Any display statement?
The rate.
At the rate.
At the
You're
rate.
right about the view bag. Somebody gives the answer view bag, but the at the rate is how you're displaying a value that you have, a variable or some expression that you have. How do you display it with the at the rate out? So at the rate, whatever, view bag. And this is the code that we wrote the other day, right? All right. This here is, of course, a combination of HTML and Razor. So you can write whatever HTML that you wanted to. Then A is equal to viewback.A. B is equal to viewback.B, and so on and so forth. Okay, supposing I did this. Supposing I did this. Now I don't have a D. Supposing I did this, I try to access this. Any guesses what viewback.d will give you right now? Any guesses what viewback.d will give you right now?
Not found.
Remember, it's dynamically being created. So if you're trying to read this value and it is not available, then it simply gives you a null value there. So let's see whether this is giving you the option that we wanted. So of course, I have not passed D to it. Let me remove the breakpoint and just run this. Initially, when I run it, it will come in with its default values. Right, and let's see what happens with the viewback.d, whether it's taking it or not. And you'll find that it didn't give you an error, but it simply took it as null. So when it's taking it as null, it's just displaying nothing out there. Are we clear on this, everybody? So it won't give you an error, but you simply take the value as a null value in here. So you have to be careful about such sort of mistakes that you could make. You could very easily be making mistakes because when you give a dot, you don't get a list of values. You're actually typing out the code. Okay. So be clear about what you're giving out. All right. Now we're going to try out a little bit of Razor code, and we're going to try seeing how we can, have code in this. We've seen two syntaxes so far. What is the first syntax that we have seen earlier? What can you do out here? What is this doing? What is this part of
dynamically?
That's a
Dynamically
block of
assigning.
Razor code. That's a block. Multiple statements can be given there. And what is this at the rate so and so doing? At the rate and some variable. What is that doing?
The fetching values that we have set earlier.
Fetch the value and put it into or display it as HTML. All right. So the only @ is giving you this, and the @ in the block is a code block where you can write your razor code out here. All right. Okay, I have some code that I'm going to be copy pasting. So what I'm trying to show you here is just the razor code block. This is the easiest code that you will write because this is C# code. So whatever you are doing in C#, you could actually write that code out. Are we getting this? All the data types, for example, if you say int or int 32, int 16, whatever other data types that you know of, whatever you know in C# can be written here in a razor block. So that's the easiest way of explaining to you what you can and cannot do in a razor block. So what am I doing out here? What is this doing? Explain to me line by line. Line 19, what is it doing simply?
Creation of one variable.
Declaring a string, all right, which string S which contains ABC. What is this doing? Initializing I to 100. What is this doing? I is equal to viewback.a. What is this doing?
Passing value of I to the view.
Other way around, reading the value from viewback.a and putting it into I, right? So all that you're doing here is accessing variables. This is how you would create variables. This is an if, is exactly the same as what you would do out there. So what does this line of code do? Can you explain to me what this code block does? I got the value of I from viewback.a. What is this code block doing?
It's checking if I is even or odd.
Correct. So if it's exactly divisible by 2, then doing what? Then doing what? What is this doing?
Displaying the result via a string.
Not displaying it, it's storing it into the variable
Okay,
S.
assigning, sorry.
Assigning it to the variable S, right? Now, what I want to also show you is variables declared in one code block are available on the entire view. They're not just, it's not that if you declare it in this code block, it's no longer available here. So variable declared here will also be available here in the other code block. It's just a continuous feed, whole set of code that you're writing out here. Okay. All right. Next part. What is this doing? What is this doing?
Displaying the result.
So @ initially I had used a viewback.id. Instead of a viewback.id, what am I displaying here? What am I
Just
displaying here?
Variable.
Variable I or variable S. So it's going to show me the values for I and S. Okay. Let's quickly run this and show you what's happening here. So if I enter A as even, I gets the value of A firstly, and then it's just going to print the value of I and whether it is even or odd. Okay. Let's run this code. So by default, A initially would be 0. If I enter this, A is taken as even, but if I enter this as odd, then A would come out as odd. So this is what you're getting in the details out here.
Sir,
Yes.
what is the use of ID? Why we are using it?
At this point, I'm not using it in my code anymore. At this point in my code, I'm not using it. It's just a variable that has been defined.
Means the similar as parameter.
Yeah, it's just a parameter or a variable. I'm not using it in my code in my example so far.
But in URL, we are declaring its value like.
That is the default URL. You can change it. You can remove the ID if you want to.
No, I mean the parameters we are assigning A equal to 21 and B, but not for the ID.
No, I'm not using the ID. That's what I'm saying. In my code example so far, I have not used the ID at all.
Okay, yes.
To answer your question, am I using ID anywhere in my code? No, I'm not.
No, not at all.
Okay. Why has the ID been given? They have given you they're saying that any default string, default URL string will look like this. This is how most things in your application look. And you can change that. That is not fixed. You can add more if you want to, you can remove if you want to. I'm not saying that you use the same thing.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay. But I will show you in the examples as we go along where they're using ID.
Yes, sir.
I will, in further examples as we take it, you will see where ID is required. Especially when you're working with databases, related code and whatnot, that's where the ID becomes meaningful. But so far you're right. I have not used ID. You can remove it if you want to.
Yes, sir.
All right. Look at this code block. How is this different from the previous one? How is this different from the previous one? In the previous one, the entire thing was a razor code block. The entire thing was a razor code block in which whatever you wrote was razor code. Razor code is equivalent to what? Another word for razor code. If you're coding in C#, this is equal to what? Basically, C# code. Right? That's what you're doing. Now, if you look at the second example that I've taken, I'm not putting the whole thing in a razor block. All right. I'm just giving them at the rate because the if itself is considered as one statement. The if itself is one statement. So I don't have to put into a razor block as such. If is one statement. Now, what if I had done this? What if I had done this? Would this be okay? Right? Would this be okay? This is also the same. Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
All right. But what I wanted to show you was that even, since if is one statement only, if is considered one statement, you could have technically written down the whole if on one line. Yes. So if you have a single statement, you don't need to give the razor block. You're giving an at the rate out there in any case. But if you want, you could have kept it in the razor block. Now, in the middle of the razor block, I want to display some HTML. All right. So here in this case, see if you look at this, this was HTML, and in the middle of HTML, what did we do? In the middle of HTML, what did we do?
Use razor.
Razor code.
Displayed the value.
Displayed a variable using razor code. Now I'm doing the reverse. I'm saying that this is the razor block. But in the middle of the razor block, I want to put in some HTML. Now to do that, you would say @ : and whatever you give it @ here, this here would be considered as HTML. Are we clear on this? So this is now HTML that you're giving out here. Supposing I had not given this, supposing I had not given this, what will this be understood as? What will this try to do? Can you explain to me line 43 now? Ignore the BR. What is line 43 now trying to do?
Simple variable
Assigning the even to result.
It's looking out for a variable called even and trying to assign it to a variable called result. And which is why it's giving you a compilation error saying I can't find even. There's no variable defined called even, or there's no variable defined called result. I don't have that. Okay. But if I had given @ : now whatever I'm giving here is considered to be HTML code. So I'm now saying if it is an even number, then directly do what? Directly display result is equal to even in HTML. Otherwise, display result is equal to odd out here. Yeah, Mayur, you raised your hand. Ask a question and don't type it out there. Ask a question, unless you have a audio problem. I just saw Mayur raise his hand. You have a question, Mayur? Okay. No? Okay. All right. So let's try running this. So now I'm displaying it twice. The second time, I'm directly giving it out as HTML. So it'll take the default value of 0 and it'll be considered as even. And this part here, the result is equal to even, that's coming out as HTML code. Are we clear on this? What am I doing in here? Explain to me what am I doing in here?
You're generating set of table rows for.
So basically, I'm creating a table, HTML table, and this part here is in the for loop. So the for runs 5 times, or actually 4 times. All right. It runs 4 times, less than 5. And I'm creating those many TRs. Each TR has a TD. So I'm displaying what? Inside that 5 into @J will do what? @J will do what?
Print the value of J. It will take the J.
Pick up the value of J and print it there. So 5 into initially this will be 1 and then equal to and then @J into 5. So what is this doing again? Displaying the calculated value J into 5. So 5 ones are 5, 5 twos are 10, 5 threes are 15, 5 fours are 20. That's how it's coming out in the form of a table. And all that you're doing here is you're dynamically creating these number of rows. And this sort of technique you'll do quite often. Suppose you want to display all the values from your database. So what will you do? You'll run a loop which says read all the values from the database or read all the values from wherever you've got multiple values and keep adding whatever, a TR, TD, whatever if you're doing out there, you can do it that way. So basically this is how you're actually generating newer elements out here. I gave you the example of on day 1 yesterday when we were talking, I gave you the example of, let's say if you're looking at your inbox. So your inbox would have similar code that is generating this, the number of mails that you have out. All right. Any questions about this? I just want to run this and show you the output. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
So look at the last section there. And that's your table that was generated. Of course, you can format it slightly better. Now, whenever you're dynamically generating code like this, right? Since you're new to this, there is a good chance that you might end up making errors. And the HTML that you get out may not be the HTML that you want to get out. Now, in such cases, you should always look at the view source. And in the view source, you go and see whether what you have given is what you have got. So this is how it is actually being generated. So table, and then you have 5 TRs or 4 TRs being generated out. Are we clear on this, everyone? So check out whether what you get as HTML is what you wanted to get as HTML or not. Always do that. Okay. Your view source is your best friend. Your view source will tell you everything that you want to know. Why is your code working or why is your code not working? Both of these. Obviously, you need to know HTML before this. Are we clear on this, everybody? Questions, if any, at this point? So are you comfortable with Razor code? What are the different nuances that we showed you. First was write code in a block. Second was display a single value, display a value from, maybe a variable or any other expression that you're displaying out here. Right? This is again a single block. Write an if or write a loop, right? That's what we had done later. And what is this one here? @ When would you need @
Displaying as HTML
Displaying
tag.
as HTML.
HTML code.
Correct. If you're giving HTML code within Razor Pro. Now I'll take you to this last option here. I didn't give @ I didn't give @ here, did I? So I had a Razor block, and within the Razor block, if I tried giving this, how did this work? So can you distinguish between this and this and tell me why didn't I need to give in the @ here? Can you identify what is different in here from here? Can you identify the difference? I'm saying that here I needed to give it, but here I didn't need to give it.
Because it is not in Razor code.
No,
We use
have
Razor
mentioned
code
it.
inside table.
Tag. We use tag.
because we are given an HTML tag. Right? Because you're given a HTML tag. So the HTML tag is automatically recognized. But this down here, when you just say result is equal to, now how do you know whether it is HTML or whether it is, actual syntax of code that you're writing? So that's where this would be required. But if you're putting in your HTML tags, if it's beginning with the HTML tag, then there's no problem. Then you can put it down directly out. Are we clear on this, everybody? So for example, if I had given this, right? If I had given this was okay. This I could have given this HTML tag here directly. Why is this giving an error? I modulus.
@
No, I have given an @ here. Okay, it's still taking an error. I'm not sure why this giving this should not. Sometimes it just gives you a compilation error when there is none. Just shows it to you, but it would run the code correctly. If you ran it this thing, it would actually run correctly. Okay. So anyway, try these code snippets out. Again, here it's showing you errors, but it's actually not an error. Okay. So when you run the code, it would run correctly. Sometimes the compiler is not able to recognize it correctly, but when you compile it, at that time it will work perfectly. So try out these snippets of Razor code, and as we go along, we'll be writing a lot more Razor code as we take it forward. Right? Okay. So I'm going to move on further. So far, what we have seen is how to create your controller. Right? That's the first thing that we have seen, how to create a controller. Second thing is we have seen how to add views and put code in there. What is the only thing missing so far?
Model.
Model. So we're going to go in for a model next. Okay. And let me go in for a new project altogether. As I said, I'm not using the day-wise syntax now. I'm just directly creating projects at the top level. So going for a new project, same thing. And I'm calling this as model binding. So what is the model? What is the model? In MVC, what is the model?
Class which contains our data.
Correct.
And methods which
Which
we can
contains
say
business
action
logic on
method.
that.
Action methods.
Perfect. Not action method. Don't call it action methods.
Okay. Next. Only methods.
It contains data and methods that work on that data or methods that manipulate that data. Basically, operations, right? Business logic, operations. Those are all the methods that you would have out there. When you say it's an action method, the action method is written in your controller. So that is what is called as an action method. So don't confuse the two. So here also I'm going to be adding a model. Let me add a model. So here you don't have an option saying adding a new model, but you do have adding a class. So add a class. And I'm calling my class as employee. Right? That's the class that I've added. Okay. I'm not sure why it's giving an error. So I just close it and open it again. It's said that it could not find object of all the things. Okay. So I just close it and open it again, and the error has gone away. I'm going to be copy pasting from my existing class to save on time. Okay. Now, please remember this. Anytime you make any changes in the model, any changes that you make in the model, remember to build your solution before you take it forward, before you try coding further. Any changes that you make, because the model is going to be used in different places. And when you compile your code, then these changes are then reflected everywhere. If you don't compile your code, it will give you weird errors. It will not be able to, get the proper details and whatnot. So any changes that you make in a model, first thing, remember to compile your code. So let me build my solution. And, no compilation errors here. Now I'm ready to take the next step. So what we want to do next is this. Our model, we'll be putting in data into this. So how do we put data into this? We'll be creating an object of this class. All right. And that object of the class would contain some data. And this data would be passed to the view. So an object of this model class will be passed to the view. Who will be doing this? Who will be creating an object of the model class? Where would we write that code? Who will, say, okay, I want to create an object of the model class. Where will we write that code?
Controller.
In the controller. And then the controller will pass an object of this model class to the view. Right? And then the view would just simply display the details out there. So this is what we want to do. Now, while doing this, the most common operations that you would do with any model are the basic CRUD operations. Right? So you'd want to maybe initially display the details. You would then maybe want to, create, basically add a record. You might want to update a record, or you might want to delete a record. So these are the 4 basic operations that you would want to do with any model. Now, you can write your own code to do this. You can write your own view to do this. But Visual Studio also gives you certain standard code that you can use for performing these operations, because these are fairly standard operations. Your CRUD operations that you do on a particular model are fairly standard. So Visual Studio generates the code for you. And either, as I said, you can either write your own code, or you can let Visual Studio generate this code for you. So initially, we will let Visual Studio generate our code. We'll say that, okay, let Visual Studio go and write code for me. And then I can modify this code if required. And then once you're familiar with this technique and you've seen what code is generated, then you can be confident enough to try out writing code on your own. Okay, without Visual Studio generating it. So let's go and generate this. Now, when you are generating this, I'm going to add a controller. But I'm not going to add a controller which is an empty controller. I'm going to add a controller with read and write actions. So see on the right hand side, it gives you a one-line explanation of what this is doing. An MVC controller with actions to create, read, update, and delete. So that's basically CRUD and list entities. Entities are, your classes, objects of classes. You'd be doing that. All right. So this is the one that we are doing out here. And this generates not a controller with nothing in it, but a controller with these methods already generated in it. Okay. I'm calling this as the employees controller. Notice the nomenclature. I'm going to be displaying employee data. So by convention, it will be named as a plural. Employees, S. Don't name it employee. Why not to name it employee?
So it is not for single entity.
Not just that. You already have a class called employee. All right. So it will cause you unnecessary problems later in your code. So the standard convention is if your class is singular, employee is your class, your controller for handling that would be called plural of that, and then the word controller in there. So employees control. Right? Let's add that. Now it does scaffolding. Just see the word scaffolding out there. So this is a term that you will encounter often in ASP.NET MVC or with Visual Studio, something called as scaffolding. Scaffolding simply means that Visual Studio.NET is generating the code for you. What does the word scaffolding mean? Scaffolding means code that is generated for you. By whom in this case? By Visual Studio. Are we clear on this, everybody? All right. So if you look at this, there are certain methods that have been generated for you. So it's not a empty controller, but it has certain methods that are generated for you. Employees controller inherits from controller. What are the methods that we have? Firstly, index. Now, if you are calling index, how will you call this? Employees / index. You can call it in this way, right? But index also happens to be the what? Index also happens to be what?
View.
What is the index? It is
Action.
the
Action.
default action. Yes or no? And this is also the default action. So therefore, while calling it, you can either call it as employees of index or simply what? Just simply employees.
Only employees.
Are we clear on this, everybody? So this is how you could call this. All right. Look at the next method. Details of 5. So what is 5 now in this case? What will that be taken as? Employees / details / 5. What will 5 be taken as?
ID.
And index will show you all the employees, or index should list out all the employees. But details of 5, any guesses what this should show you? Details,
Employee with employee ID 5.
correct. So it will show you one employee only whose ID is 5. ID in this case will be your primary key. What is our ID for employee? Is the employee number. All right. Okay, again slash create, employee slash create. So it will allow you to add a new employee. It will allow you to add a new employee. Create has 2 times they have written create. They have written create 2 times. One create is for a get and one create is for a post. So I'll explain how this would work. I'll show you how this works. Let me first just take you through all the methods that are generated. We'll figure out what is the difference between when does get called, when does post get called. We'll see this. But this is why they have created 2 methods called create. One for the get and one for the post. How do you know that this will work for the post? Which line number is telling you that this is going to work for the post?
Attribute on line 32.
Line number 32. What is line number 32? What is that called in square brackets?
Attribute.
Very good. So this method has an attribute of HTTP post. Now this method does not have any attribute. It does not have an attribute called HTTP get. It does not have that. So what does that automatically imply?
By default, get attribute.
By default, all methods are HTTP gets. So far, you're not given anywhere. You're not given anything. So far, what is happening was the get was being called. But if you want a post to be called, then you need to give it an attribute of post. All right. Okay, let's look further. Employees slash edit slash 5. This is how you're calling this. Any guesses what this would do? Edit 5.
Update the details of employee
Correct.
with employee ID 5.
Correct. So firstly, show the details of employee ID 5, then allow him to make changes to this. So this edit also has a get and a post. Okay, and we'll get into how does post get called, what happens. We'll get into those details. But you will find that there are 2 methods for edit as well. All right. The last one is delete. So employees slash delete slash 5, where 5 is the ID. So what will it do again? It will show you first employee number 5 and allow you to delete it. Are we clear on this, everybody? So all of these are for single records. The index is for all records. Index is for all records. Are we clear on this? You know, somebody just about maybe 15-20 minutes back had a question about the ID. Why were we using the ID? Is this now clearer why we are using the ID?
Yes, sir.
All right. So in this example, the ID is required. And this is what you'd be doing in most of your code. So which is why they said that this is the typical pattern that is generally given, which is controller slash method slash ID. Okay. All right. Now, this doesn't have any views for it. Let us generate the views. Let us generate the views. Please notice carefully what we're doing. It's going to be a repetitive action, something that we're going to be having to do often in your code. So let me generate a view for index. Help me. Tell me what should I do. I'm tired of talking. So you all tell me, I will do that.
Right click on index and add view. Add view. Then add.
Yes. MVC view. Now this time, instead of taking it as an empty view, I'm going to take it up with these other options. So what is the difference from what we have done yesterday and what we're doing today? Today we have a model. Right? Today we have a model. And which is where we're going to generate these other options out here. Now, which one should I pick up? Which of these templates should I pick up? Let me explain the templates and then you tell me which one to pick up. Create, the first template create would be used typically when you want to create an employee for the first time. You want to create a record. So create will work with what? Will work best with what? Look on
Insert.
the left hand side, the method that we have will work with which method?
Create.
With the create method. Delete will work with which method?
Delete
Delete.
method.
With the delete method. The methods that I just discussed in the controller. So this delete template will work best with delete. Edit will work best with what?
Update.
It was also called edit. It was also called edit. It was not called update. So you are right for updating an employee, but the name of the method that was generated was edit. Details will work with what?
Index.
Index. No list.
There was another method called details.
One employee detail.
Yes or no? There was a method called details. I could say /detail/5. So if you wanted to see details of one employee, so these names, if you notice, are matching exactly with the names that have been generated in the controller methods. The controller methods also had create, also had delete, also had details, also had edit. So these four are a clear match for that. Simple, same name. Now, what does that leave out? What are the only two methods left out? What are the only two methods left out? One is empty and one is list. So for index, what do you think would be most apt? Index, I want to show all the employees.
List.
So list will be the method that you will generate. So index will map to list. All other methods will map to their names. Empty, we have seen. When you say empty, what does it do? It generates in the
Empty
view.
view.
What does it do? Generates an empty view. All right. So I'll take up index as list. Second thing, model class. Which model class do you need?
Employee.
All right. So it's showing you all the classes, and that's the class that we need. Employee. Now, this is what I was telling you. If you have not compiled the code, then it would not show up here. So you need to first compile the code for it to be shown up here. Are we clear? That's your employee class. Reference script library, skip that so that it says that all the scripts that we need, we'll add a reference for that. And do you want to use a layout page? I'll keep it yes. I'll keep the layout page as yes. And add. So again, it's generating scaffolding. And you'll find that now the view that is generated has some code in it. We'll examine this code a little later. Okay, but you'll find that there is some code generated in it. Now I've done this for index. Similarly, I'll have to do it for the other methods. So again, I'm tired of talking. Please help me by calling out the code one by one. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Tell me the steps for others. Somebody volunteer. Who's volunteering? I don't want to hear Kaustub's voice. Somebody else, come on. Dishi, you want to go first?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Tell me the steps.
We'll
For
right
details.
click. We'll right click on details, then click on add view, then add it, and then we'll select the template as details.
Perfect. Anything else to be done here?
Model class would be employee class
Correct. And that's it.
and layout.
All right. And then details is generated. Similarly, do it for all the others. So there's create, there's edit, and there is delete. One more. Anyone else? Shiv Kumar, you want to go? You've got a good salary also now. Your
Yes, sir.
record is in our database. You better give me the right answers. Give me
Yes,
for
sir.
create quickly.
Right click on create, add view, add, select template as create, select model class,
Which one?
employee, and
And
add.
okay, so it's added for this as well. Now, there are two creates here. There are 2 creates, but you will do it only for one. Any one you can do it for. You don't have to do it for both. Do it for any one of them, right? Similarly, now let me do the others. Edit and delete. So same way, right? This, change it to edit, change it to employee, and done. And lastly, delete, same way. Right? So it's as simple as doing this. I wish there was one button which said that generate all the methods. Okay, they don't have that button here, but I wish there was a button which said that. Are we clear on this, everything? Okay, I'll also make the controller as employees. That's the default controller. All right, now let's examine each of these. Let's examine each of these. Let's start with details. Let's start with details. Detail says return a view. Okay. Now here is what we need to do. We need to create an object of the employee class. Okay. So help me create an object of the employee class. Come on, code. Carry on. Employee, obj. Now I don't, only problem here is what? It doesn't find employee. Why doesn't it find employee? Look at where it is. It is model binding dot models. That's the namespace.
We have to use using statement.
So using is missing. Using is missing. Let's add a using. All right. Similarly, properties obj dot employee number is equal to. Can I pass it as the ID? Whatever the ID, I will take that as the employee number. Right. Remember, you're going to get what you want to show details for a particular ID. Okay. Now, I'm just hard coding the values right now. To keep it simple, I'm just hard coding the values. So which means right now, whatever ID is passed, your name that will be picked up will be Vikram. Right? So this is what I'm doing out here. I'm hard coding the values. Instead of hard coding the values, what should I be actually doing? What should I actually be doing?
Fetching them from database.
Excellent. So you would have to later write code which says that instead of hard coding a value here, read it from the database. Are we clear on this, everybody? Do you know how to read a value from the database?
Yes.
Right? Okay. All right. So we have created an object of the model class. Second thing, what do you have to do? Second thing, what you have to do? Pass it to the view. So how do you pass it to the view? The view has an overload by which you can take an object. So now the job of the controller is over. What is the controller done? It's saying, okay, I will pick up this model class. I will create an object and I'm passing it to the view. Now the view takes over. And the view would be responsible for displaying this object or displaying these details. So let's go into the view. We had created a view called details. Let's see this. Look at the first line on top. Look at the first line on top. @model and then the name of the class. So @model and employee, which is in that namespace, model binding dot models dot employee. This is the first thing that it finds out here. Now this is an example of a strongly typed view. What is a strongly typed view? A view that picks up the details from a model. So far, we have not been creating strongly typed views. Our views have just been, just randomly displaying some data. But this view is going to receive details from an employee object. Where is that employee object going to come in from? Here. This object that you pass in the view, the controller is creating this object and passing it. This object is being received here as @model. Are we clear on this? All right. Now let's look at the code that it's using. So firstly, an H2, and then H4 employee. And then look at this. Look at this. @HTML dot display name for. Now this here, again, is called as an HTML helper. What this does for you is it generates some HTML based on values that you're given out here for it. You have seen one more such example, at least one more such example of @HTML dot in the code that you wrote yesterday. Can you tell me what that was? @HTML dot. We have seen at least one more example, at least one more. Do you remember that from the code that we did yesterday? Yes. I'll take you to the layout. You remember this?
Yes.
What did this do? What did this do? @HTML dot action link. What did that do for you? What code did it generate? What HTML code did it generate?
So create a hyperlink.
It created a hyperlink. It created a href, an anchor tag it created. Right? So you have not given the anchor tag directly. You meaning the code that is written here. Instead, it says @HTML dot action link. This is what it had done. And similarly here, now you're saying HTML dot display name for. Now let's see what parameters it takes out here. You see what it takes? It takes a func. It takes a func of what? Employee, comma, t value. So what does it say? What does it say? Take an employee as a parameter. Now, how did it get employee out here? Where did it get employee from? How did it know it had to take an employee? How did it know that it had to take an employee?
Model binding.
View is created
Based on what you gave here with the @model. So whatever your model was, this would take up that parameter. So in this case, it takes an employee as a parameter. Model binding dot models dot employee. And secondly, what return what from there? Func is of something is returning something. So func of that is returning what? T value is what? Any column from employee. So here it says display name for take model as a parameter. What is model of type? What is model of type?
Employee.
Employee. Does it have to be called model only, or can it be called X, Y, Z, whatever? Could this have been X? Take X as a parameter and return X dot employee number. Is this also okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the word model there is not a keyword. It is just the variable name. And what is this of type? What is X of type? Of
Employee.
type employee. So look at this X of type employee. Can you see this here? So if I did X dot, what do I get from here? All the properties of employee. Are we clear on this, everybody? All right. Now let's focus on what display for name for actually gives you. So display name for will display the name of the employee number property. I'll say that again. It will display the name of the employee number property. What is the name of the employee number property? What is the name of the employee number property?
Employee number.
Employee number.
EMPNO.
EMPNO.
EMPNO. So this is like writing EMPNO directly. This is like writing EMPNO directly. What is the EMPNO? That's the name of the property. Are we getting this, everybody? So this is what display name for did for you. Similarly, what happened? How did I get two of these? Do I have? No, why not? So why is it giving me two? Okay, I don't know why it generated two. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. Display name for and display for. So what is this actually showing you? Display name for is showing you
Name of the
yes.
column.
This is actually showing you EMPN.
Name
something like this,
EMPNO.
right? So why didn't they write EMPNO directly, and why did they say that use the display name for? Why did they do this? The reason for that is because if you want to, you can give it a different value to display. You can set it in your model class and you can say instead of showing EMPNO, it should display name for should show me, let's say employee, the whole word, employee ID. So I can display some other text there if I want to. Are we clear on this, everybody? So this can be changed. It doesn't have to be employee number. Right now, what is it going to give you? EMPNO. But this later we'll see how you can actually change this. Then second thing, what is it actually doing? Display for. Display for is giving you the value in employee number. So what is the value in employee number? Supposing I had passed it 100. Supposing I had passed it 100. Then this would give me what? This would actually show me 100. So you have two things. You have display name for and display for. Display name for is the name of the property and display for is the value of the property. This they have repeated for the others. Similarly, what display name for name and display name for, display for name. So this is the name and this is the actual property value there. In my case, it would be Vikram. And repeating it for the others. For basic also same way and for department number also same. Are you clear on this? So this is the code that they have generated for you. This is saying that by default we'll show you this. And you can change it if you want to. There's no hard and fast rule. You can change it. If you don't want to look this way, you can change it and make it what you want to. But this is the scaffolded code for you. Achha, what does it show at the bottom? What do you think this is showing you? What is showing you your action link? What is this going to generate?
Hyperlinks. For
Hyperlink for going to the
Yeah.
edit page and for going to the index page. All right. So let's run this and see. We want to run it with details. It will give you a problem here if ID is not sent. So what could I do? Two possibilities,
default values or null.
Nullable or default.
right? So I'll give a default value and I'll set it equal to ID out here. Okay, this is my code. So let's go into details. Okay, it's going to give me an error. I'm okay with that. Ignore the error for now. Ignore the error for now. So it's trying to go to index. It's trying to go to index. And I have not written the code for index as yet. So that's what the error is. right? So it says what null reference, exception, object reference not set to an instance of. So this is actually the code for index that it's showing me. All right, and I'm okay with it giving an error. I just wanted to show you that don't panic if an error comes. The error is only coming because we have not yet written down the code for it. And I'll change this right now. Instead of making it as index as a startup, I'll set it as what? I'll set as details as startup so that it does not try to go to index. So let's run this again. And this time now it's going to work correctly because I've got details as my start point. Okay, I don't know why my battery is running low. Yeah. So this is your details as a start point. Why did it take the employee number as 0?
You have not passed it.
Because you're not passed it. If you want to pass it, what will you need to do? You'll have to say slash employees slash details slash whatever value you're passing. For example, if I pass 5, that's the value that it's been. Are we clear on this? These are the two hyperlinks that you saw at the bottom. One which takes you to the edit page, which is currently, it might give you exceptions. The other one which is taking you to which page? To the index page. Right? Index again would give you an error. But this is what we got. Are we clear on this, everybody? Any questions, any doubts with what we have done so far? Yes. All right. Let's turn our attention to the index page, which is giving an error so far. Now, let me show you the view that was generated. What did we say for index? Index, we had said that we want to use list. The scaffolding that we generated was a list. When we said create a new view. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? When we added this, let's say if I said add a view and then we said okay. And then here we had chosen what? We had chosen a list for this. This is what we had done. Now, when you choose a list, this is what it generates. Let's see what the list generates. Let's go to the view for this. See what the model is. What is the model now? How is it different?
INumerable.
INumerable of employee. So what is this taking? It's actually taking a collection of employees. It's taking multiple employees out here. And you're not showing only one employee. You're showing what? More than one employee. So if you had to show more than one employee, supposing you had 15 employees, how do you show these 15 employees? What will you need to do? You'll need to loop through them.
Loop.
Correct? You'll need to loop through them. And that's the code that it is generating. So right now, the model is no longer an employee, but it is an INumerable of employee. Am I making sense? All right. So come down here. First part here. What is this creating?
Table.
A table in which, what is this now? First part here. What is this
Title
generated
row.
for?
Title
Yes.
row.
Sorry?
Title row.
Title row. Okay. So what is display name for giving you? The name of the properties. So this will be employee number, name, basic, and department number. So it's just giving you the name of the properties. It's the heading, the title row or the heading row that you're showing out here. And then all the employees are being shown in a for each loop. So what do we have here? For each where item in model. Now, when you say capital M model, this refers to the object that you received out here. So capital M model is a keyword which refers to your model that you have received out here. This is the object of the model class that you have received out here. So what is model now here? What is model of type? What is the data type for model? Yes,
INumerable employee.
IEnumerable of employee. If model is an IEnumerable of employee, what does that make item?
Single
Data
employee.
type of item?
Employee.
One employee. So item, if you look at model here, model is IEnumerable of employee, and item here now is a employee object. So if I did item dot, what would I get here now? Item dot would give me what?
All properties of
Property.
All
employee.
the properties of employee. So what am I displaying here now? What am I displaying here? What are these being displayed? This is the
Properties
actual
for
values for the first
Properties.
employee object. And this is in the for each loop. So this is going to generate as many rows as the number of employees. Like we did in a previous example, there I had written a for loop. In my Razor code example, I had written a for loop and generated 4 rows. Now here, what is it doing? It's simply generating it in the for each loop. Okay, what is it also generating? What is also generating here is what?
hyperlinks,
Hyperlinks to take you to where?
edit,
Edit or
details and
details or
delete employee.
delete. So for each employee, you have a hyperlink being generated. Are we clear on this? So for this code to work, for this page to show up, what does it need to receive? What does it need to receive?
Collection of employees.
List.
A collection of employees. Right? That's what it needs to receive. So let me come to this code and create a collection of employees. So list of employee, whatever, let's say EMPS is equal to new list of employee. And then you need to do this, add an employee out here. Okay. Right now, I'm hard coding the value. What would you need to do instead of hard coding the value?
Select from database.
Read it from the database. So let's pass in different values. Employee number is equal to 1, comma. Name is equal to Vikram, comma. Basic is equal to, comma. Department number is equal to 50. And add as many as you want to. Right. All right. What is missing here after you create the object? What more you need to do? What more do you need to do after creating that object?
Passing the object.
Passing to view.
Passing to the view. So passing EMPS to the view. Right. And now your index should come out correct. So I'll go back and make index as my start point. All right. And let's run this. So by default, it's taking you to employees/index. And those 3-4 records that you're given here, those should be shown. Whatever. 4 records being shown. Each of the records each of the records has, 1 second, there's something wrong with my power cord. I'm just going to take a minute to try and adjust it. Yeah, so slightly loose connection. So each of the records that I had here has these 3 hyperlinks. So that's what we have given, that for every record, show the 3 hyperlinks which take you to edit or details or delete. So if I click on details, will it take me to details actually? Will it actually take me to details? I have the details page. I don't have edit or delete. I don't have that. So if you click here, it does take you to details, but it's always going to show you what, the incorrect employee numbers. We still need to get that to work. That if I click on this, for example, then it should show me that particular record and all of that. That needs to be done. But the details page will be shown to you. So this code is generating that. So by the time we finish the example, we'll get it all functional, which says that if you click here, it should show you, firstly, the values here should come from the database. When you click here, it should show you that particular record. That part will get working. And at this point, the hyperlink to details is getting generated. Are we clear on this so far? Any queries or questions regarding this? This is the second one that we did, which was index. Let's go to the next one. Next one is doing what? Is create.
Create.
Okay. So let's examine create here first. Let's examine create. So create also takes what? @ model. What does it take as a this thing? What does it take here? A
Employee class.
single model object here is taken as a parameter. Now, the create is different from what you saw in the details. And see how is this different? What is the first thing that's different? What is the first thing that's different here? What are the line that you see different from what you saw earlier?
Starting HTML form.
Correct. So it says HTML.begin form. So this is your open, form tag. So this is form/form. This is the opening form tag. And wherever this closes, this is a using block. So wherever this closes, somewhere here it's closing. This will be your /form. So form/form. That's what's going to get generated. All right. And all the controls that are there are now going to be generated within form/form. All right. So visualize the HTML in your mind. There's a form/form, and within that, all your HTML controls are getting generated. Now, what are the HTML controls that are getting generated? Firstly, ignore the validation summary. Look at HTML.label_for. What do you think this is doing? Label for and then showing you this. What do you think this part is doing?
Text box.
Label for. Label for cannot be a text box, no, Ali.
Heading to text
Label
box.
tag.
Is a label.
Label tag. Label tag.
Yeah, it's displaying to you the employee number, the text employee number. This is like saying what? Just display the word employee number. Now here in this case, it is also taking this. What is this new class? So and so. What is this actually?
Bootstrap class.
This is the CSS class, right? And then yes, Bootstrap is what you're using out here. So this second part is not to do with what is being displayed, is more to do with how it's being displayed. What is the formatting that you're using out here, right? So the first thing it's got is the label for, and then it has an editor for. So what do you think the editor for will do for you? Editor for will generate what?
Input field.
Correct. So one of the input fields out here. So input type equal to whatever, text or any of the other types that it has out. Okay. Ignore the validation message for. Ignore this. So ignore the validation summary and ignore the validation message for completely. Don't even look at it. This will be used when you use a concept called as data annotations. So I'm not doing data annotations with you right now. But when we do data annotations, this is what would come into play out here. So concentrate on label for and editor for. So what are we doing now? Employee number, employee number. Similarly, what? Label for name and editor for name. Repeating it for the others. Basic and for department number. At the end of the for, after end of these controls, what is it also creating? What is it also creating?
Submit button.
Submit button.
A submit button. So what will happen when you submit? When you click on the submit button, you got a form/form. What will happen when you're clicking on the submit button?
Data will be inserted in table.
At this point, it will send a further request, right? It will send a further request. And depending upon what you're given in the form, method equal to, action equal to, it will send a request to that place. So now let's see what gets generated out here for you, right? When we run this, let's see what gets generated here for you. So I'll go to the create option. Let's go to the create option. This is the create page. On the index page, there is a hyperlink which takes you to create, right? And you can do that, or you can come directly. So see what got generated here. This is what got generated. What is this? If you compare it with the code that came in here, what is this one? Employee number.
Label.
Label for. And what is this now? The second one here is what?
Editor for.
Editor for.
Editor for. And what have I told you? Who's your best friend right now? When you're working with this, is the view page source. So if you look at the view page source, you'll see what gets generated. So what is getting generated here? Look at this form. Action equal to, what is it taken as action? What is it taken as action? Yes.
Employees.
Employee/create.
The same page, create. And method equal to what? Method is post.
Post.
So when will it do a post for this? When will it do a post for this?
And we click the submit.
When you click on the submit button. So there's a submit button happening here, and this is where your form is ending. So when you click on the submit button, it's going to do a post for create. Right now, when I went to create directly, what did it do for me? Was it a get or a post initially when I first went to the create page? At this point, this was the get happening. And then when you click on the submit button, that's your post happening. So you'll notice that for the create, there are two things happening. There was a get and there was a post. So the page is initially shown in the get. Then the user fills the values and he clicks on the button, submit button there, and it sends a post to this page. Therefore, your code also has two methods. The generated code that we have has two methods. What are the two methods that it has? What are the two methods that it has? There is a create method with a get and a create method with a post. Both of these. Are we clear on this, everybody? Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's put in a breakpoint just to show you what's happening. So I'll put a breakpoint for create out here and a breakpoint for create out here. And let's try running this code. So when you run this code and run it from the controller itself, what is the first thing that will run? Initially, what will run is the index page, but there is an option, there is a link here for create new. So when you click on the create new link, at this point, it goes into the get. It goes into the get, right? And if I continue running this, the get page is shown. Do we need to do anything extra for this page? Do you need to write additional code for this page to do anything extra when you come to this page initially? Or is this okay? Is this how it should work? Or is there anything extra that you want to do? That when you first come to create, anything extra to be done, anything different to be done? Or is this okay? Does this look okay?
It is okay.
It looks okay because on your create page, what are you doing? You're trying to insert a record. So initially when you come to the page, it should be blank. And the get part of this page is perfectly okay. I don't need to change anything in there. Now after this, what would the user do? At this point, what will he do? He'll enter a value in the employee number. He'll enter a name. He'll enter a basic. He'll enter a department number. He'll enter this and then do what? Click on create. Now when you click on create, automatically it's going into the post. So you have marked this as the HTTP post for create. Right? Now in here, the first thing that you want to do is find out what values he had entered. Whatever values he had entered in those 4 controls, you want to find out those values. And if you're working with the database, then you need to insert these values into the database. So that is what code you'll have to do in your post. Right now, I'm not working with the database. So I will only show you what values are coming in and how to read the values. I'll show you how to do that. Later, when we bring in database code, you're going to write down code to put the value into the database. So my job right now is only to show you what values are coming in. Okay. Now, to read the values in this, you have something called form collection. Form collection. And form collection will contain the values between form/form. You had the HTML code generated form/form. So all the input values between form/form would be picked up out here. All right. And how could I pick up these values here? How could I pick up these values here? So I could do something like this. String, let's say name is equal to collection of whatever the name of that control out. I could do this. So what is name out here? What is name out here? What is name out here?
Whatever value the user has entered in that name input.
This is the name of the input type. This is the name property of the input type. So I'll show you what is happening here. Again, as I said, the best friend that you have here is your view source. If you know your HTML, then view source will give you all the answers. You don't need me. So let me first go into this. And if you see this, look at the view source. I don't know whether you noticed it last time I showed it to you. What names has it generated? So it was a form, and see what it has created for you. First was, of course, the label. First was the label. And then what has it created here for you? Ignore these. Ignore all of these. Ignore all of these. Ignore all of these. What is the type equal to?
Number.
Type equal to number. So it's input type equal to number, ID equal to employee number, and name equal to employee number. What is the difference between ID and name? In HTML, what is the difference between ID and name?
So ID is used for
server
on
side.
client side, and name is for server side.
ID is used for
Client side.
Client side.
Client side.
client side code, correct. For JavaScript code typically that you write. And name is used when you are accessing it in the server. So the name that you give here is the name that you're reading in collection of something. Similarly here, look at the others. Look at the others. Input, ignore all of this. Class equal to, look at this last thing. Type equal to text, ID equal to name, and name equal to name. This is what is actually generated for you. Are we clear on this, everybody? And so on and so forth for the others as well. Similarly, you have for basic and for department number. So one way is you could do this. And here, this is the input type equal to text, name equal to whatever name that you give me. So how do I pick up the others? Help me pick up employee number.
Int EMPNO
Equal to
Collection.
collection
Collection of EMP.
collection of EMPN. Now this gives me an error. Gives me an error because this here is returning a string.
String.
But I'm trying to put into an int. So what do I need to do here in this case?
Convert dot.
Typecast means parser.
In dot parse. Right? This is what I could do. Similarly, what else could I do out here? I had a department number. Right? Please give this name carefully, okay? This is the name that is generated for you. Where is the name getting generated from? From the properties. Whatever the name of the property, that was the name of that control that was generated. And that's what we're using now. And finally, what is the last one?
Basic.
You just copy paste this. All right. And this is how you could actually read the values. Are we clear on this, everybody? So let's try running this again. And let me show you the values that are coming in here. So initially it should just show you the form. Right, create new, press F5 to get this. Let me enter the values here. Okay, remember the values that I'm entering, and I click on create and see what this is picked up now. Name has been picked up as what? Vikram. Employee number was 1. Department number was 20, and basic was that 1111 that I entered. So I'm giving you the values out. Are we clear on this? Questions, if any? At this point, questions, if any?
So what is that form collection using internally?
The form/form, the values that are entered between form/form. A collection of all the values that have been entered between form/form. In HTML, you have that form/form.
Yes.
So all the values that have been entered between that. When you submit the form, whatever values are there within that.
Okay, sir.
Understood? All right. Now, although you can write code like this, the way that I have shown you here, I'm going to show you an alternative way. Now, you remember we talked about binding. What does binding do? We talked about binding variables. What did binding do for you?
Values,
Values assigning automatically.
Say that again. Value.
Values assigning automatically to variables without writing code.
Correct.
By
So if
query
your
string.
variable was called X, and let's say you had in your query string something called X, the value of that variable got automatically assigned without we having to do any additional code out there. Now here we're going to talk about something called as model binding. Instead of doing simple binding out there, if you are using a model class here, of course, is my employee class. If you're using a model out here, then if you have any values either in your query string or within the submitted values in your form collection, and if the name of that control or name of the query string variable matches the property of your class, the value is automatically assigned to it. I'll repeat what I'm saying. In your form collection, you had something, you had 4 controls created. What were the control names given? Input type equal to text, name equal to what was it generating? input, those input types that you had, what was the name that was being generated for it?
The
Property
name
name.
of the respective property.
Property names. I'm saying that if the name of your property and the name of that control that is there, if they match, then the property, what are the properties of employee? Employee dot obj dot employee number, name, basic, department number. If those four are matching, then it will automatically populate your model with the values that have been submitted. And this feature is called as model binding. So model binding will automatically populate your model object with values that have been submitted or values that are coming in from the queries. So which means now, if I, instead of saying form collection, if I'm now given employee obj, my employee obj will automatically get the values without me doing any code. This is happening due to model binding. And now if I've got an employee obj, how could I directly get the values? How could I get the values directly?
obj dot.
Perfect. I could directly get the values as what? As obj dot. I don't need to now read it as collection of name, of collection of employee number or whatever. I don't need to do that. I can directly get it with obj dot. Are we clear on this, everything? So I don't even need to do this. I don't even need to do string name equal to so and so. Directly obj dot is giving you the values. Okay. Now this is not something that I have done great. This is something that ASP.NET is providing to you automatically. Let's see how we could work with this. Same things now. I just want to show you the values out there. Right, so go to create new. Okay, this of course is running this. And create. So if you come down to this create now, look at obj, and obj has all those values out. Are you clear on this? So this is what is much easier and much better also. The code that we write with obj is better than the code we write with this. Agree or no? If I have to use the values directly with obj, I can work with it much better than this. I don't have to do any conversions. I don't have to worry about converting from string to an integer or whatever. What if I had given a wrong spelling out here? Then it would not work. So all of this is automatically taken care of. So what is happening here is using model binding, employee obj is automatically populated from values that are posted or values that are in query string. So even the query string values, it will take that. Okay. Both of these it could take. And this is what is referred to as model binding. Clear on this, everybody? Questions, if any? Otherwise, we'll move on. If you understood this concept, then a lot of your code as we write it is going to get much simpler. Clear? All right. So we have taken care of create. What I've not done here, of course, is asked you to write code which works with how, what would happen once your values are coming in. That you're going to do with the database. That you're going to do, and I'm going to help you with that. All right. Let's try out the next option, which was. So should we do this? Should we use form collection? Should we use form collection?
No, sir.
Yeah. Do we need to use form collection?
No.
Answer is no. Preferably use what? Model binding. Okay. But in case you wanted to use form collection, this is how you could use this. All right, let's turn our attention to edit. Now, what is going to be the difference between edit and create? Edit also allows you to see one record firstly, and then it allows you to update that record. So let's go into the view for edit. Go to the view for edit. So here also you have what? You have @model, which is taken employee as the parameter. Here also you have a begin form, and then the form is ended here. Here also you have what? What do you have here?
Button.
A submit button, which will, when you click on it, will submit the form. Here also you will have a get and a post. So initially, when you first go to that page, there's a get happening. And then when he submits the form to update the values, the post will happen. So far similar to create. But the difference is when you go to edit for the first time, the values in this should already be populated. And it should already show you your employee number 1, for example. Supposing I go for employee number 1, supposing I'm saying /edit/1, then it should already show me employee number 1. And then the user can see those changes. And if he chooses to, he can update those changes. He can make changes in those values and update it into the database. So that is the only change between create and edit. That when you go to the get, the value should be initially shown there. Now, where else have you done this? That when you first go to the page, the value should be initially shown there. Single record should be initially shown there. Where else have you done that?
Details.
In the details. So you will notice that the code that you write for details is going to be similar to the code that you write for edit get. The edit get code will also have similar code to what you have written in details. So let's go into the code for details. Let's go into the code for details. And in the code for details, like what we are displaying here, instead of displaying it here in edit, what are we doing? We are displaying it as what? As what? Label for and editor for. Editor for is your text box. So let's have a look at this. So I'm going to do the same things out here, which is exactly the same code that I have here. In details, I'm going to put it into edit. I'm going to put it into edit. So right now, what is it going to do? Whichever record I go for editing, by default, it's going to show me Vikram 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. Okay, let's try running edit. Let's try running edit. Okay, one more thing I have missed out on doing. One more thing I missed out on doing is I'm giving it a default value so that it does not give me an error. Okay, otherwise, if I don't pass it a value, what will happen is it will give me an error. So to avoid that, I have done what? I've given it a default value. Okay, how do I go to edit? From the index page, how do I go to edit? One is, of course, I can change the URL. Any other way?
Hyperlink.
The hyperlink here for all of these, right? So if I click on edit, it's taking me here. Of course, the employee number currently is 0 because I'm not passed anything in here. If I want, I can actually pass an employee number here. So let's say 1, and that will show me the values. So what has now happened is that initial values have come in here, right? So this code was similar to what you did in details. And what else do you need to do? When you click on save, now what will happen? When you click on save, what will happen? These values will be posted similar to what happened in create. Correct? So let's go into the code for post. And in the code for post, it is taking a form collection. So what would you suggest? Should we keep it as form collection?
Model binding,
And instead of form collection, use what?
employee
Model
object.
binding.
So this would simply be employee. All right. So the values now can be received here as employee using model binding. Let's confirm. Let's run this and see how this works. Okay, I've not done that, but ideally I should have given in the post I should have given the ID out there. So if the ID is not passed, then it should not give me an error. So if I change the value, let's say I now make it Vikram 123, basic, whatever, 5 times 2 and department number 20. So I've changed these values here and I click on save. Right, gone into the code for this. And how do I get these values? We find that OBJ now contains all these values, the change values, which you will need to write code to update into the database. All right. There is something wrong with my power product. This is not behaving. All right. Edit okay? Clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Questions, if any? All right. What you could also do here is given a default value here so that it should not cause you a problem. Otherwise, it will give you a problem. Now, if I give the default value for the first one, what will happen now? I'm forced to give a default value for the second one also. So I could set it equal to null by default, right? And that would be the default value for this. That leaves me with delete. Now, if you look at the view for delete that it has generated, again, what it's doing is passing a single employee object. And what is this code doing? What is this code doing? What is this code doing? If you look at this code, look at the first two. What is it doing?
It's a label for EMP, like name
Yeah.
EMP and then its value.
Displaying EMPN number.
So this is,
EMP number.
if you notice this code, this is identical to details.
Details.
Right? Identical to details. It doesn't have a form here. All right? It doesn't have a begin form here. And at the end, it has what? A begin form wherein it has a submit. So this is what it has right now. Okay. And let's go into the code for this. So here also you'll have two things. You have a get and a post. So what is the difference between get and post? Initially, when you go to that page, it should show you the record. That is the get part of it. And then later, when you submit it, it should delete that record. So let me show you this. How do I show the record first? What code would this be? It will be similar to what? Displaying one record will be similar to what?
Details.
Details. So let me copy paste the code for details. Exactly the same code as details goes into delete. And I'll give it a default ID. And while receiving this also, I'm receiving it as 0, the default ID. And for now, employee OBJ equal to null. Right? Now, it's going to cause you some problems here. And I wanted to try this code out when you go into the lab and discuss with me, ki, okay, sir, this is what happened and this is what happened incorrectly, or I didn't get this or I didn't get that. And if I get the right questions, only then I'll give you the right answers. If you don't ask me the question, I am not going to give you the answer to. So I'm telling you that something strange is going to happen and you're not going to necessarily get it working the way you assumed it would be working. So I will in fact even appreciate if you can come up with, sir, see, this is what happened and this is why it happened and this is what we'll need to do to get it working. If you can come up with this, fantastic. If you can't come up with that, at least if you can come up with, sir, why is this happening? Why is this not working? Then I'll give you the answer to it. But if you can even come up with the answers to it, that'll be even better. So that's the only hint I'm giving you. I'm just saying that there is, kuch to gadbad hai. Right? Anyway, let's see how this works. So what are we trying out? We're trying out a delete. I'll put a breakpoint here and delete with a specific ID. So how do I go to delete? Actually, what can I do to go to delete? Directly, I can click on the link out here, and this shows me 0. But if I want, I can give in the ID out here. So let's say I'm given ID as 1. All right, and this asking you for confirmation. So this first part is just showing you the record and asking you for confirmation. Are you sure you want to delete this? And if you said yes, delete it. It's coming here. And what do you need to delete from the database? What do you need to delete from the database? If you have to delete a record, all that you need is what?
ID.
The employee number, the ID. Yes or no? You don't need the other details. Your statement would be delete from employees where employee number equal to whatever the ID. So if you notice, the ID is coming in correctly. So ID was 1. Okay, I'm not putting my mouse pointer on employee. Purposely not. That should be a good hint for you. But ID has come in as 1. This is what I got. And that's how you can go and delete that. All right. Clear about this, everybody? Okay, so we are out of time. I have just explained to you how the scaffolding is happening. And with the scaffolding, what basic code you need to write. I would like you all to try these things out in your lab time right now. And then in the afternoon session, come back with questions from me. Remember, no questions, no explanations. If you don't ask me a question, I will not explain it. And we will in the afternoon discuss how we can now get it working with the database. But if you can even give me the solution to that, that will be even better. All right. So stopping here for the day. Anything that you'd like to ask before we end the session? All right. We'll see you at 2. All right. Happy coding. Enjoy your coding session.